drawing room. This is where the Bells would entertain all of their guests. It is a little misleading because they didn't actually do art in this room. They didn't draw. It just meant that after dinner, they would withdraw or leave the dining room and then come here and do all their entertaining. So if there were no guests in this room, these doors would stay closed just to limit the amount of times that the room had to be cleaned. And the drawing room in the Victorian era was huge for the woman of the house, which was his mother, Eliza. So this would be her chance to show off the family's wealth by having the nicest furniture and the nicest artwork. Because she was an artist herself, we also have her own pieces on display, So this one here, although not a painting, all of the embroidery she did herself. Yeah.
That's pretty.
Definitely. These two at the back of Eliza and Melville, they were both originally photographs, but photography was still pretty new at this point, and she didn't really like how they turned out. So what she did was she took charcoal to everything that she didn't like, and essentially made them into new original pieces. The piece behind you there of that waterfall, she did this one back in Scotland in Perth, so it made the journey when they came over. And then the last one that I'll point out is just on that little end table there, and it's of a 3-year-old Alexander.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's cute.
Yeah. And then this one above the fireplace here, this one is of his mother, Eliza. It's just that she didn't do this one herself. She just sat for it and somebody else painted it. And we think that she's about 65 in this one.
Wow.
Yeah. So Alexander had a lot of deaf influence in his life that he often said was the reason he was able to invent the telephone. And the first major influence came from his mother. So when Eliza was 13, she had a lot of ear infections, and because antibiotics aren't like what they are now, she went almost completely deaf. Because of this, she had to carry around a hearing trumpet with her for the rest of her life. So one that she actually used is just on her chair right here. But one that you're more than welcome to pick up is just on the settee right behind you on that armrest. So how it works is you would stick the skinny end into your ear, and then somebody else speaks into the comment. Yeah. And it does make it louder. But the really big issue with that hearing trumpet was that Alexander did not like using it with his mother because he thought it was really impersonal to always speak at such a distance from her. But the rule of his house was if any child wanted to complain, they also had to be ready to solve their issue. So he did. What he figured out was that if he just pressed his lips to his mother's forehead and just spoke normally, because of the sound vibrations, she could understand him. She could also use this method when the melodeon was being played. If she just pressed her forehead to the wood, she would again be able to feel and hear the notes being played and then play it herself. She also taught all 3 of her sons. Yeah.
Yes.
So it is the understanding that sound vibrations can translate to real sound in your brain that made him curious about how else he could manipulate sound, what else he could send it down that would lead to the telephone. He still has more influence though. The next one comes from his wife. So right here are photographs of Alexander and his wife Mabel. When Mabel was 5 years old, she had scarlet fever, and the fever got so high that the bones fused together in both of her ears, and she went completely deaf. Yeah.
That's not good.
No. By 5, she had already learned how to speak, but she did stay in speech therapy throughout the rest of her childhood and teenage years. This is how her and Alexander met. So Mabel was American. She was already attending that school down in Boston for the deaf where Alexander was working, and he had become her teacher. There is an age gap. There's about 10 years. Mabel was 16 when they met, making Alexander 26, and originally her parents did not want them to be together. Not really because of the age gap, but because at this point, Alexander hadn't invented the telephone. So in their eyes, he hadn't really done anything with his life. This did change. Alexander was eventually given permission to start going out with Mabel, and the 2 were married by the time she was 20. It was Mabel's idea to call it the Bell Telephone Company because it's his last name, but it's also really short and easy to remember. And she was very well versed in visible speech, that invention from the library. it's really great for lip reading. So as long as you're in front of her and she can read your lips, you can hold a conversation. Yeah. And the two of them did go on to have 4 children together, 2 boys, 2 girls. Unfortunately, both boys died in infancy, but both girls did grow up, marry husbands of their own. They did drop their last name though when they got married, so the descendants no longer have the last name Dell. It is a couple different last names.
Cool.
Yeah. And then the last piece that I'll point out in here is this one right here. So it's called the stereoscope. This one is the much older version, so it's made with wood and metal. But there is a plastic version that you're more than welcome to try out, just on that chair or table there. So if you pick it up and look through the lens, hopefully those 2 pictures should blur into a 3D image, but like an 1870s 3D.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, I want to try. Want to? Whoa.
Any questions about anything in here?
So is this how it would normally been set up, or is this just to kind of show off some of the furniture pieces?
We think it's very close. So the letters were extremely detailed, even down to where furniture was in the rooms. So we do think it's pretty close. Same with the wallpaper, we know that the colors are very similar. It's just obviously not the exact same pattern. Yeah, just the more expensive pieces definitely would have been in here. And she always did have her own art all throughout the house on all of the walls. They have a summer property out in Nova Scotia that's still in the family's name, and they actually have photographs from it, and her art is just covering the walls too. So
Wow.
yeah,
This must be expensive. Oh, what was I gonna say? Damn it. Yeah, the art must have been expensive.
definitely, yeah.
Sorry
a lot
about
of the pieces that we have are just on loan from the family, like a permanent loan. But if they ever wanted it back for whatever reason, it would go back to them.
Sorry about that.